Hate, hate. Let me see. Let me see. Okay. Come on in, guys. Come on in. Come on in. Come on in. Hey, guys, come on in. Load on in. Load on in. We gotta talk. We gotta talk. We gotta talk. We gotta talk. I'm not gonna keep y'all on here long. Actually, I'm not even gonna. I'm not even gonna. Hold on. Let's see. Oh, or is it? Come on in, guys. Hey, y'all. Hey, y'all. Click like as you come in. Oh, the Africans are pissed at you guys. They're mad. They are mad, mad, mad. Come on in, guys. Come on in. Come on in. Let's talk for a little while. Let's talk for a little while. Hey, guys. Hey, Roy PhD. Hey, Melanated Magic. How are you guys? Come on in, y'all. Click like as you come in. Click like as you come in so more people can join the live. I hope you guys can hear me. I'm actually going to just not cam up. How about that? Since the last show you guys did me dirty. I'm not gonna cam up. Y'all did me so dirty the last show. Y'all did me so darn dirty. I wouldn't do my worst enemy like y'all did me that last show. I wouldn't do my worst enemy like that. Y'all saw people just sat there and just watched. Come on in, guys. This is a quick show. I'm actually doing another show on tomorrow. But I wanted to talk about this real quick. I initially wasn't going to go live today, but I wanted to cover this really quickly because the Africans are mad, upset. Click like as you come in. Hey, Classy Pearl. She said, "Hey, y'all. Happy Tuesday. Glad you're covering this because these people have been all over the place, all over the place, not being able to tie two and two together, wanting to say that dandyism is a cross between African American and European fashion. It has nothing to do with neither. So today we're going to just do a brief history of dandyism. It's not going to be that deep. I'm just going to really unpack it real quick because actually it's not that deep. And we're just gonna run through it real quick. Hey guys, come on in, click like as you come in, comment in the chat so that I don't know who is all in here. This is gonna be a very short show, and I say that every show, but no, this is really gonna be a short show. I have a lot to get done. For those of you who are getting the genealogy or the land search packages, congratulations. For everybody who has gotten a positive response. This is a very exciting time. We are learning a lot about these families. And in between that, while pulling a lot of these alternative file sets, we have discovered just tribal names that we've never even seen before. And this is from putting in actual coordinates to land, which, this is not my first time putting in coordinates, but some of these file sets I haven't seen. And I'm just as shocked as some of these families who are receiving the information. Now, I will be going to Athens on Friday. That's why I was saying with the people who signed up for genealogy on, when was that, Friday? Last Friday, last time I was live, whenever the last time I was live, some people wanted genealogy. So how it works where I go research in Athens, if I have a basic names for families in Athens, the files are stored underground. So I called beforehand. They pulled the files for me. And so when I get there, I'll be able to go through these boxes. Now, if I don't do that, then I'll be stuck at the computers, just kind of doing what I do here in Atlanta. Um, not seeing hard copies of stuff, not seeing many things that are on microfilm. So I have to call in advance in order to pull file sets so that I can make copies of stuff while I'm there. That's why I'm saying the more people, the more families that I take, the better, because I'm calling in advance to get the files pulled, some of the files pulled. Now, if there are no files to pull, then I have to do alternative methods there. But like one of my friends here, the Breedlove family, like their whole Breedlove farm file set was up in Athens, a whole box of farm records. I mean, from the 1800s all the way up until the time that they lost the lands, literally underground in freaking Athens. So you know, and they have multiple families, multiple states, not just Georgia, which is very interesting that a lot of these land grant colleges got a lot of the documents that HBCUs didn't even have, don't even have access to. You would think that these files would be stored at HBCUs. Anyway, so if you're getting that service, just try to get it by Friday. On the website, you can pay in increments. I see some people are utilizing that. That's a great thing, to be able to pay, break the payment down into four. So yeah, so that's that. Hey guys. Hey guys. Yes, I did, Rodney. I just have something else to pull. You need genealogy as well. Okay, yes, you can pay in increments on the website, um, for genealogy, like I was just saying, for those of you who need both. So listen, guys. Last night they had the Met Gala. Okay, click like as you come in, guys. Please let me know that you're in here by commenting in the chat. Click like so that more people can come in here. We can, you know, uh, get some of this confusion out of the way. I think a lot of the confusion came by way of announcers saying that dandyism was a cross between African and European fashion, when in fact it had absolutely nothing to do with those different fashion styles. In fact, we have been, ever since Sinners came out, we have been going back and forth with who started blues, who started what, who started these particular music genres. And on my channel, I brought out jazz, um, and I also brought out a couple of other music genres, report, um, and things of that nature, right? So I brought out the waltz as well. I briefly mentioned ragtime. I think I played a little Scott Joplin. Yes, I played a little Scott Joplin. I mentioned classical ragtime and how it gave rise to the waltz. All of this is very important because those genres of music had fashion that went along with it, just as hip hop has fashion that went along with it. And it just so happened that era of music, mid 1800s to late 1800s to the turn of the century, dandyism played a part. Now, dandyism in particular was a representation of a well dressed, very tailored suit on a man, a high class, high dressed black man. It wasn't any man. Dandyism did not represent any man. Okay, it wasn't about any man. It was specifically about black men, black American men in the South, Negroes, coloreds, specifically about how they were tailoring their suits. And so there were a lot of things that happened after this fashion trend blew up. When this fashion trend blew up, a certain sector of people started making a mockery out of the people who were dressing. They started calling these people black aristocrats. they started mocking them, right? Blackface and all that. But the style of dress was just so widely popular, you could not you couldn't kill that style of dress, just like hip hop, sagging pants, baggy shirts, that whole era, that whole backwards jersey era in hip hop, that entire era, do rags, all people were mimicking it, people were mocking it, but you could not kill it. The only thing that could kill it is when this group of black men decide they want to dress some other way. That's the only thing. That's the only thing that kills these types of fashion movements, this progression of fashion. Now, on the flip side, the men were dressing like that, and the women were dressing in corset dresses. So corset bodice, very, very thin waist black women. I'm talking size 22 waist, 20 waist, 20-inch waist, all booty type dresses. And they were very much tailored dresses, and they accompanied their husbands, these men who had on these very tailored suits. And so when you talk about ragtime today, when we say rags, we still think about this, a form of dressing. She got on some nice rags. In essence, the slang is still prevalent, but we just don't put two and two together and unpack it the way it needs to be. Rags still relates to clothing to this day. So you have a ragtime, classical ragtime, and dancing, the waltz, and now you have a visual of how people dressed when they were in the jazz clubs. It's kind of different from the blues. In classical ragtime, classical music, when they were attending shows, you know, um, this is how they were dressing when they were attending operas or operettas, or vaudeville for that, matter. They were dressing what we call today classy, upscale, black tie. It's almost black tie, but it was black people who created that style of dressing. Now, when Europeans came over during the World Wars, they saw Negroes dressed like this. In fact, when they came during the Civil War, they saw Negroes dressed like this. And, the dandy, you're looking mighty dandy, became kind of popular. Now, one thing that happened during this era was white people started trying to mimic Negroes in the South with their waltz. And so they really couldn't get the rhythm of the dances down. They really couldn't get the rhythm of the spins, the drops. They couldn't get it down, right? So they started doing their version of it, and then black people started picking on their version, and they called their version the cakewalk. So what white people was doing was these like almost off rhythm, off syncopation walks, and they thought that they were actually doing the waltz, which does, there's like these kicks and spins, and it's almost like a walk hop type of ballroom dancing. When you're doing the waltz, you're almost skipping but you're spinning as well. I'm sure you guys have seen the waltz by now. You're almost skipping and spinning at the same time, and whites could not do it. And so blacks started mimicking and not y'all, for those of you who are just so freaking woke. Of course, I'm using black and white just so it won't muddy the waters. They could not get it, so they started calling it a cakewalk, and then they start mimicking the cakewalk. And so if you go and look up old photos of any cakewalk, you'll actually be able to see how Black Americans were dressing during that time, when they was actually mimicking the white people who were trying to copy their style at the time. And then the cakewalk became a thing because they were actually mimicking colonizers who was coming in, and it looked so funny to them. The cakewalk became a thing, and we still use the terminology cakewalk to this day. Now, it signifies something different. It signifies when you done something very easy. You had the easy way out. That's called a cakewalk, and it's actually not that different because white people was trying to take an easy way out for what the dances that Negroes invented during that era, the waltz and all these classical ragtime dances that they were doing. They were trying to take an easy way out, but their easy way ended up being like a walk. Like they were literally just walking off rhythm still. I'll check it in Sinidra. I have your file too as well. I talked about that before I started discussing this dandyism. I was just talking about the people who were land and genealogy clients about I was just talking about that. But guys, so the dandyism had everything to do with the style of tailoring that Negroes were doing to their clothes during this era. Now, if you're a black woman, you probably are going to definitely know what this young lady who I'm about to discuss, who's very, very upset. There's this I think she may be Nigerian. Anyway, there's this very popular, very, very, very popular seamstress named Tubo. Tubo is a popular, very popular singer. She does wedding dresses. She does, these bodice style wedding dresses, and she's made so much money that she's been able to move from. I'm pretty sure she's from Nigeria. She's been able to move from Nigeria over to Texas, and I mean everybody who's somebody has probably either saw her creations or worn one, because she makes very nice tailored wedding dresses, very nice sleek style wedding dresses, right? And so when this dandyism happened last night on the big stage at the Met Gala, a lot of Africans were mad because they did not get the opportunity to dress the celebrities that were there. There was probably one or two Africans who got to dress people, but you had the Laquan Smiths and all the black, for the most part, a lot of black tailors and designers who were dressing people for the Met Gala, and of course some whites too, who are very much familiar with the American history as it relates to clothing and that whole era of dandyism. So she went on a rampage. She went on a few rampages, commenting on everybody's stuff, saying that, oh, this is a knockoff of her designs, saying that, and clicking like on people comments all on Twitter saying, oh, this reminds me of Tubo, one of Tubo designs, and clicking like on people who are saying things like, I'm not impressed about what happens in Western fashion because we're living it. We live this fashion every day. These are people from continental Africa saying that they weren't impressed with any of the designs last night, and the ones that they were impressed with were copies of Tubo designs, right? So now, mind you, Tubo has done nothing special, but what she does is she makes designs with bodices or corsets in dresses. I mean, they're nicely colored, they're nicely tailored to the body, but it's nothing different from what seamstresses were doing during this whole dandyism era. It's nothing different, literally nothing different. But she's one of the biggest ones out of Nigeria, if not the biggest out of Nigeria, and she is just on a rampage, right? I made a comment basically, and it was in good faith. Like, I didn't go off or anything, but I basically kind of, saw her comment on one of her people's posts that they made saying that, wow, the fact that they didn't get Tubo to, design anything for last night while mimicking her style is just crazy, right? And she clicked like on it and commented on it. And I keep seeing these recurring things. And so I basically commented saying that, hey, guys, this is not a new style. So to say that Americans are new to this style of dressing is, you know, it's not right, because we're not new to this. You guys are just new to America. And if you want to be a great designer someday, you better learn history and not, you know, insinuate that you came up with this style in America. Just because you don't see a lot of American fashion houses anymore, or because you don't see a lot of American designers, making wedding dresses, does not mean, because this is all it is really. It's just this is a wedding dress. It's wedding dresses in different colors, because the style of dress is wedding dresses. Are there? That's what it is, right? I said, just because you don't see a lot of Americans making these bodice corset dresses every day does not mean it didn't originate over here. And I let them know that during the era when dandyism was popular, Africa was very much in tribal gear. You guys had tribal rags draped over you. You had tribal fabric draped and wrapped around your body. We were already in bodice gowns. Our men were already in suits. And by the era of the world wars, those tailored suits became zoot suits. So we've always had this type of suit fashion, this type of dress fashion. But what you all see as it relates to our elders are cotton field pictures. And that's not so. People did not work 24/7. And also, you need to take into consideration that all black people were not slaves. So all black people, Negroes, coloreds, American Indians, whatever you want to call us today, weren't in tattered, dirty clothes all day 24/7. Some were plantation owners, some were big land owners, some were commodity owners, some were doing big business, some were performers. We had singers. We always had a colorful sector of entertainment here in America that you guys have always been second and third and fourth to mimic. The Europeans always mimic us first, and then here come you guys about second or third. Now you all are probably the second to mimic us, and it's probably us, then you, then Europeans, then Koreans or Asians. And that's how the mimicking pattern goes now. But it's never been the other way around. So the fact that you're commenting under all of these celebrity posts, talking about this designer, took your fashion, when in fact these designers are going all the way back to the early 1900s, the turn of the century. They're going all the way back to the late 1800s, and they're looking at how the women were dressed. They're looking at how the men were dressed. I mean, the women were dressed to the T, y'all. These women were in bodice gowns. They had head pieces on, the head pieces with the flowers sticking out the head that you would think came from somewhere else. These black women had that form of dress on, but you have to put in different things. If you want to Google something, you have to put in different things from that era in order to get the images that you want to see pulled up from that era, like cakewalk, like Negro waltz, or like ragtime, classical ragtime, or jazz attire for Negroes. Then you will pull up all these black aristocrats, if you will, dressed in this form of attire. So, that's egg on your face, because now you're online going off on everybody, going off on people, you and your troop of Africans, because every week it's something different with these Africans going off on Americans about something, when in actuality it's their fault that they don't know our culture in entirety. When they want to be in our culture, you might want to learn it before you just jump, hop, skip onto something, especially the fact that a lot of your dresses are being sold to Black American women because Nigerians can't afford your dresses. So you're now in Houston, and your biggest market is Black American women. So to be up under everybody post crashing out saying they stole your design, y'all are mad. Y'all are angry. When in actuality, when the movie Sinner came out and y'all was angry about that, saying y'all created blues and jazz, you should have been Googling it to see how people were dressed during that era and not just watching the movie. not just going by what the movie show. You should have did your research. You should have googled the fashion from that era, and that would have given you an indication of, okay, wow, they're wearing these bodice gowns. They have their waists cinched. These men have tailored suits on. Wow, I thought these were slaves. So something could have hit you at that point to let you know that, hey, these black folk weren't just slaves over there in America. Look at these nicely dressed. Look at these nicely dressed Americans. This is what black Americans are talking about. They don't look like, by way of how they're dressing, they don't look like slaves to me. That then the light bulb would have went up in your head. Okay, these are the inventors. All right. These are the people who created these forms of music. These are the people who supported it. Oh, okay. You know. It would have easily went off. I want to ask y'all a question, because when you start taking up for the ancestors online, and people like to throw up slavery, people like to throw up, the American Colonization Act. They like to throw up all kind of stuff, but it's so funny. If I say to you guys, there's no place like home, what do you all automatically think of? Type it in the chat. If I say there's no place like home, what does it make you think of? Type it in the chat. Type it in the chat. There's no place like home. Nobody comes up with nothing. No, nobody. There's no place like home. What does that make you think of? Okay, nobody thinks of nothing. Please click like as you come in here, guys. Please click like as you come in. Please click like as you come in. There's no place like home in media. What does it make you think of in media? What does there's no place like home make you think of in the meet? Golly, guys, y'all don't. Well, yeah, is everybody asleep? Is everybody asleep? What does it make you think of as it relates to movies, whatever? What does it make? Somebody said it. Okay, I see. Okay, I see some. Okay. So some people are putting it in the chat. What does it make you think of? Please click like as you come in, and let me know, what does there's no place like home make you think of? Okay, some people are putting it. Okay, okay. You know that easel. Somebody said Wizard of Oz, The Wiz, Albany, Georgia, moving on down the road. The Wizard of, okay, America, The Wiz, The Wizard of Oz, The Wiz, Philadelphia. Okay, ease on down the road. Okay, I got it. Okay, so this is the crazy part, guys. This is the crazy part. This is the crazy part. There's no place like home actually is in this same era of dandyism, right? These people, these blacks, these Negroes, these coloreds had wrote a operetta. Is really like a mini version of operas, less acts, right? Or you can call it a play. This play became just so popular during this exact same era, and it was called In the Homie, a Negro musical. In the Homie. The Homie is Benin. And basically, In the Homie was about two men who were from America, who created the American Colonization Society. Basically, the whole play was kind of mimicking what happened with the American Colonization Society. Mind you, a lot of Negroes were totally against the American Colonization Society. So much so that they created this what became a musical called In the Homie. Now, in the musical or operetta In the Homie, it featured like two brothers, and it, well, not two brothers, but two business partners and a man with a lot of money. Now they was looking for an heirloom. Initially they were looking for an heirloom that was lost, but they heard that this place over in Africa had a lot of um had a lot of something, a lot of whatever. And so somebody had contact with the king of the Dahomey tribe, which is now Benin. Well, the place was called Dahomey, but it's modern day Benin. And so they wanted to make a voyage over to Benin. So they said, okay, well, we'll take liquor. They took barrels of liquor to get in good with the guy over in Benin, because they had in their mind a plan to colonize Benin, right? What they didn't know was when they got over there, they gave the liquor to the king over there and got in good with them, and then they started plotting. They started plotting on the king over there in Benin, or Dahomey. Now, in Dahomey at the time, if you become a prisoner, then you get murdered. It ain't no way around it. If you become a prisoner, they murder you on a specific day, and that's anybody who become a prisoner, right? So the guys who were planning on colonizing Benin had a dispute with the king. And so now that they have a dispute going on with the king, they become prisoners. Now, it just so happened the barrels of liquor that came from America with them, they had more of it. And so they ended up giving the king of the Dahomey tribe, Benin, more liquor. And the king was so impressed by the liquor that they gave him that instead of killing the two guys who came from America with plans on colonizing Benin, he let them go. So they was able to escape death. And because they were able to escape death, they came up with "There's no place like home," and hightailed their ass back over here to America. This was a play, an operetta that became so popular. In fact, it is known that this was the very first operetta that, one, mimicked a real life event that was happening, and two, they had, backdrops, and it was an elaborate scheme, and it was all this thing, and these people were dressed to the nines. These Americans who played out, this was an all American, all Black American, Negro American cast. It was one of the first all Negro American casts that was able to travel internationally and put on this play about the American Colonization Act, about American colonization, when Americans thought that they was about to go and colonize Africa, and then you're about to die. You have to give the king more liquor. Then you gave the king of Benin more liquor, and they let you go. And then "There's no place like home" became a slogan that was just passed down. And then you saw the slogan in The Wizard of Oz. Then you saw the slogan in The Wiz. Now, when you go and look up in Dahomey that play, then you can relate it to The Wizard of Oz and The Wiz, right? So that's where they took that initial slogan from, that "There's no place like home." It was the ending of the Dahomey operetta, the In Dahomey operetta, where they were unsuccessfully able to colonize Benin. And the people who went over there into Benin from different countries were in prison, and they were all murdered. They were all murdered. So that was a very interesting thing. Now, when you go look up, like I said, when you go look up this, dandyism comes up in this actual operetta, in this actual musical theater play, whatever you want to call it. Well, it was called multiple things during that era. But the dandyism actually comes up in that because the men were the black men, the Negroes who came from America with plans on colonizing Benin. They had these suits that were so tailored. They had these top hats on, and every actor, every actress who played any kind of role in Dahomey, that's how they were dressed. And bodice gowns, big poofy at the bottom, very slim around the waist, big poofy hair, big elaborate hair pieces. These are the types of dress that was common to. It wasn't a costume. This was how they actually dressed. And so, it's just strange that we were talking about this same era in the Sinners movie when we had to bring up our musical genres. Now we have to bring up other things that the ancestors did in order to verify, in order to justify, you know, um, our fashion, and this is hurtful to Africans who kept spreading the rumor that Black Americans had no culture. You must didn't hear about the operetta in Dahomey. You know, you mustn't go back and look, because the internet is a wild place. As things are archived digitally, you can pull them up if you type in the right things. You can certainly pull these old photos up. You can go to London, where In Dahomey was a bestseller. It was the first operetta that actually became an album, and it became an album in London in the UK. They turned In Dahomey into an album, and then it was a best-selling album. So now you got a best-selling, what we call best-selling today. You have a best-selling operetta, and then you got a best-selling album. And then you have these stage props, these stage backdrops that they have never seen in any other musical theater, opera, operetta, um, you know, any kind of minstrel. They have not seen this type of production, and it was all Negroes dressed to the nines. We're not even doing that today. The one opera that's all Negro stage, which is Porgy and Bess, there are some people that are dressed nice, but for the most part, everybody is not even dressed like this today. You know, there's Tremonisha, which is um one of Scott Joplin's many operas that you may see, like a few opera theaters did Tremonisha, but many people don't even acknowledge it. I think San Francisco Opera um did it. I think that's the last showing of Tremonisha that I've seen with San Francisco Opera. But and the people are dressed to the nines in that, because hey, that's Scott Joplin's era. The King of Ragtime era is always a dandy man. He's always dressed dandy. He was always dressed dandy. That when they woke up in the morning, they put them clothes on. And this is not a village. Okay, this was not village attire. So for people to be online trying to spin the narrative that, dandyism was a mixture of African and European culture, no, ma'am. We took the culture to Europe in Dahomey when we put that play over in London. And I'm saying we, because I got ancestral blood. I am me, I am them, and they are me. When the Negroes took these plays across the water, then people tried to mimic how they were tailoring suits, how they were, doing seamstress work on these gowns versus just putting clothes on and them hanging off of your body. These Negroes started tailoring these clothes to their body. And that was the difference. It's not that any other man in Europe wasn't wearing a suit. That's, people were wearing suits in other areas. However, they weren't tailored to the body, because they didn't have these Black American seamstresses. So, they were tailoring these clothes over here in America, and that became dandy. And fast forward to today, Europe eat this style up as a classic European style, because at this point they've already reduced us and all of our ancestors to no culture having slaves. That is the danger in these people repeating that you were a slave. That is the danger in this word slave as it relates to us. You cannot reduce us in a box and put a slave label on it, because if you do that, then what about the seamstress? What about the people who innovated fashion? Were they slaves as well because they tailored one of your suits? Does that make them a slave? I had to repeat to somebody on that Tubo post that, hey, my grandmother was a seamstress in the 40s. My other grandmother was a seamstress until she got dementia. So both of my grandmothers were seamstress, and my grandmother's mother was a seamstress. And these women were making gowns with bodices in them. They were making gowns with corsets in them. They can make any style of gown, any style of wedding dress. This didn't come from Africa. So you weren't putting bodices in your fabric, and you lived in a village. It didn't match. You didn't have music to match that style of dress. You weren't wearing top hats, because what music form did you have where a top hat was needed? So of course you didn't come up with it. You had nothing to do with it. You had the culture that you had in Africa did not match this attire. So your culture matched the culture of wrapping fabric around you and stomping your foot up and down on the dirt. That matches the bongos that you had. The culture of wearing top hats and suits and bodices and corset dresses matches the pianos, the trombones, the saxophones, the flutes, the guitars. That it matches what we had over here. The pianos, the harpsichords, it matches. It matches. And so that's all I want. I wanted to come in here today to clear that up. Like, it's very easy to unpack these subject matters, because if an African want to say that they created this style of tailoring in clothing, how? You had nothing to match this. What are you going to say? This is how y'all was dressing in the slave castle? That doesn't even match. Because being that close to the beach in a 4-piece suit with a top hat with a bodice gown on, walking on beach sand, does not match. This does not even match your septic system today. You barely have a septic system today. You barely have electricity today. Your electricity cuts off every single day. It does not match top hats and suits. Not saying some of our ancestors didn't have outhouses, but hell, even outhouses, you still had a house. You wasn't in no hut. Even the ancestors who had outhouses, it still matched, because they actually had a house. The bathroom was just on the outside of the house. But they still had houses. They wasn't living in no villages with mud huts. Somebody just gave me a thumbs down. Like, y'all don't like this kind of information, because it's so easy to say the niggas were slaves and the Africans had on top hats and fucking suits, and the women in Africa in the goddamn villages had on gowns with bodices in them and high heels in the fucking dirt villages. Stop it. Don't be mad and come in my chat with no thumbs down because you're mad.